Hello there, it's Tyler Higgins here for the 14th and final week of oceanography. This slideshow is going to be going over the coral reefs and ecosystems, going through the different organisms that are going to be making up these food webs. We got producers, consumers, secondary consumers, top predators, and decomposers that we're going to be going over this week. Let's get right into it with the producer. So for our producer, I chose blue-green algae, which they're plankton guys. They're cyanobacteria, and they just kind of sit up on the surface, make themselves food. They kind of replicate up here. They're pelagic, meaning they can kind of float around the ocean. They don't really go down too deep. They don't get to the floor. They're autotrophs. They're going to be making their own food with the sunlight, the nutrients they have in the water. And they grow really fast. And they are really good at overpopulating in places that have good nutrients, good temperature, all these good conditions for them to live. Because in these kind of areas, they'll kind of go rampant and just keep going until there's nothing left. And they'll end up leaving ecosystems in a kind of down state. Let's go for our primary consumer, which I chose green sea turtle, which wasn't a great choice in retrospect, but the green sea turtles are all over the place. They're not really strictly, honestly, if you have to give them the definition, they're more pelagic instead of benthic, because they need air. They can't stay on the bottom all the time. When they're little babies, they're going to be eating plants and animals, everything, kind of just whatever they can get their hands on. But as soon as they start maturing, they're going to switch over to more meaty diets. And they're heterotrophs because they can't make their own food, and they have their own bedding areas that they go to every night. And as the climate is changing, they're going towards colder areas, because the temperature, they're looking for the same temperature every year, and they're just kind of shifting a little bit over and over every year. For the secondary consumer, I chose nurse shark, which they're benthic because they're always on the seafloor, and they sleep most of their day. About 2/3 of their time is spent sleeping, and in that 1/3 of time, their time, they're going to be hunting, trying to find food, just kind of moseying around. They're kind of lazy sharks. They're awesome. For our top predator, we put the black-tip reef shark, which is going to be a pack animal in the waters. They're pelagic, and they're apex predators in most ecosystems, most reef ecosystems. Once in a while, there will be a bigger shark, like a bull shark or something, coming through that will end up being the top predator. But in this case, we'll call the reef shark the top predator. They are going to be eating fish, snakes, invertebrates, mollusks, pretty much anything they can get their hands on. They hunt as packs, so they're going to be able to take down some bigger fish. They're nectons, which means that they can swim wherever they like. Because there's a difference between a plankton and necton, which we went over a week ago. Or maybe two. Kind of, yeah. Reef sharks are really good swimmers. Like, you can see them jumping over reefs in the water and stuff sometimes. There's actually some really cool videos on YouTube about that. For the decomposer, I chose polychaete worms. Sure, this isn't like the only variation. There's definitely other kinds of polychaetes. They come in all sorts of shapes, and these are kind of the decomposers of the ocean. This is like our mushrooms up here, or not really mushrooms, more like bugs. But they're a benthic decomposer mainly because they'll float around on dead carcasses wherever in the ocean, but most of those will go sink down to the bottom. They're heterotrophic because they can't make their own food. They have to get it from deceased animals. And these guys are going to be in almost every ecosystem in the ocean in some place. And they make them make their own little homes in the ground, like this picture shows here. You can see he's just kind of chilling in the ground there, just waiting to find something. And this is the food web made with these animals. So in the top left up here we got some blue-green algae, which it's really small, so I have to get a different kind of picture for that one. And then these are going to be creating a lot of the initial food in this ecosystem. And I mentioned earlier that this was kind of a poor choice for this specific diagram, because these aren't directly eaten by any of these animals. They're going to be eaten by other animals in the reefs and then make its way over here. But I ended up choosing it and I wanted to ride it through. And then we got the green sea turtle, which is going to be not eating per se the blue-green algae, but it is going to have it in there because it's going to be eating plants and stuff that's already kind of saturated in it. And then these turtles are going to be these nurse sharks, which are right here, are going to be eating sea turtles occasionally, not very often, and mostly just small animals because they're not really super aggressive sharks compared to the black tip over here. So black tip, it'll eat turtles and often does it, actually, as well as reef fish and all sorts of other ones. It'll eat like groupers, parrotfish, all sorts of other fish. And we got the pelican worms, which is going to be feeding on all of these animals, just decomposing them, reintroducing these nutrients back into the environment for all these other animals to take advantage of, help out corals, all these other things, because really coral reefs are just the ecosystem that all these animals are in. So let's talk about the effects on the abiotic environment that the coral reefs that these guys live on are going to do to the environment. Okay, so the coral reef ecosystem is kind of, it's not super closely related. It's not made out of the same things as the nearby environment, but it grows so well in the ocean environment sometimes that it almost becomes its own biome, its own structure. And they're really interesting because they can change the area around them, and they're really fragile and they're beautiful. They can change with light, nutrients, algae. Also, reefs are kind of a buffer against tidal currents, and they'll kind of protect the shores and prevent them from eroding as much, kind of like some seawalls that we'll make in the ocean sometimes. And then reefs are actually really important economically for some states. I think countries per se. There's 27 countries that are very closely related to reef activity, and 9 of those are island countries, but hey, that's not all of them. So if these coral reefs die out, their fish populations that they'll be able to harvest are going to be going down. There's going to be less tourists too that come to visit that, and a lot of these countries are smaller countries that really make a lot of their money from tourism. But without the coral reefs attracting the people there for the fishing, the economy really slows down the more these ecosystems are threatened. They're really fragile. Coral reefs very, very vulnerable to almost any changes in their environment. Geological changes, chemical, physical, all these. Let's start with geology, which is one of the bigger ones because the geology of the reef and its surrounding area is going to impact the animals that live there, the coral reef itself, people, everything. So let's start with what the reef does to the surrounding area, and then we can get into all the other nitty-gritty stuff in a second. the coral reefs are going to be made up of polyps, which are just little tiny guys. The coral reefs aren't made up of it. They're actually just kind of housing it. They're kind of symbiotic. And then these polyps are going to be they're going to have skeletons made of calcium carbonate, which ends up accumulating on the ocean floor near said coral and transitioning into limestone deposits. As these guys die, their bodies kind of pile up, get smushed down by the ocean pressure, and become limestone deposits that we harvest eventually, and we can use them. We have geologists that can determine all sorts of things from this. They can just take this rock, drill it out, and they can figure out the temperature, the salinity, the chemical properties of this water, and they can associate that with a certain time based on how deep it was or other factors. Coral reefs also interfere with the surrounding seabed shape. As sturdier reefs are hit, they can often create sandbars further off the shore. Yeah, so if you have a reef, the water's gonna be pushing against it and stopping here. It's gonna leave a lot of sediment there, create like a little raised area, sometimes a sandbar. Kind of really interesting. It's kind of its own environment. And then let's talk about the chemical factors that are going to be influencing these reefs, which are almost all man-made. The coral is really sensitive to chemical changes. Just small chemical changes is going to cause a little bit of bleaching or death of polyps, ZOCs for short. Some even tiny changes in pH or just chemicals is going to do big damage against it. The two biggest ones is oxybenzone and octinoxate. It's a really big one. They sound really bad. And then the more you research them, the more you realize it's just sunblock. Sunblock is killing our reefs with these two chemicals, which aren't directly in it. These are actually this is what the sunblock turns into after it degrades a little bit. It turns into these two chemicals, which are really bad for the reefs, slowing their growth and often killing the reefs. More damage is caused by oil spills sometimes, because the oil spills will do the oil spill thing and kill lots of life, make it hard for things to live, repopulate, all those sorts of things. And then physical. Reefs are going to be changing really easily through temperature, salinity, chemical. The reefs are going to be changing really right now based on temperature. The temperature changes caused by the climate change and global warming is actually bleaching coral reefs around the world. And I think by 2050 I saw a demographic that said that 60% of our coral reefs are going to be very endangered, like critical endangered. And the change in temperature is going to be causing the coral to get rid of its symbiotes or kind of expel them, which is also its color. It's why it's called bleaching. The same increase in temperature causes disease to spread around the reefs through all the different animals. And then salinity. Salinity decreases. These same polyps can be expelled, another source of bleaching in corals. And then chemicals are a big one. Just kind of talk about it again because it's one of the bigger ones. Chemicals can cause corals direct physical damage, crippling the coral, and ocean acidification from the greenhouse gases we're putting back in the atmosphere is also causing this, just kind of harming reefs all around our world. But that is going to be it for this week. See you guys.